Hello everybody and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today, and I hope you're all having a very good Tuesday or Wednesday depending on where you are in the world. And today I've got a replay from Summit K2 who's playing at Indianapolis, a ship that you don't really see all that much, and a ship that I think really has suffered as new lines have come out. This ship when she first came out was kind of unique, kind of had things going for her, and now she just doesn't really. Other things have power creep beyond her, and maybe it's time to get a buff for this particular ship and bring her up to the standards that we have tier 7 cruisers at today, perhaps. I mean, compare this to the Belfast, and it's not a contest at all. The Belfast is significantly better. Well, we do call it Payfast for that particular reason. Anyways, in Summit's game, he's going to be playing the Indianapolis as a second line support cruiser, which, there are a lot of cruisers in the game right now that aren't really good frontline cruisers. They're better as a supporting cruiser, and if you're, having one of those ships and you struggle, just watch this and you kind of have a pretty good idea of how to go about playing your ship. Although I'm not really going to be spending the whole video today talking about this because not the most exciting battle in the world. Bunch of other things to talk about. First of all, updates on my current internet situation. Upload is still completely borked. They've escalated the ticket all the way up to the senior techs at their vendor, and they are looking at it. They said they'll call me when they have updates. So far, I haven't gotten a thing. So my guess is I'm probably gonna have to suffer with really garbage upload for a while longer. Hopefully once they finish, fixing this, I will know exactly what happened, or so I hope. And then maybe if I ever run into the problem again, I can point them in the right direction. This is actually starting to get really freaking frustrating. But at least, at least I can get something up. It'll take a couple hours, but at least I can get a video up. Aside from that, well, recently with this really crappy upload, I've been playing a lot of other things. I've played a lot more War Thunder, mostly air, although I have played some ground. Definitely getting better at the air component, like much better. Really enjoying the Italian 202 EC. That should be like the 2.7 battle rating plane. Oh, that plane is just amazing. Good amount of firepower. And she's cannons. Like, she's got cannons, and cannons are like totally awesome. I love cannons in that game. I've tried a bit of ground. I mean, I've tried naval. You guys saw that video. I've tried ground. Ground is it might just be I'm not very good at ground right now, but I do struggle with ground tremendously. Although I did have one game where I actually managed I think a triple strike and then 2 additional kills in like a very short period of time. So that was really sweet. Maybe I'll show you guys that clip sometime as well. Yeah, I know. There will be some smattering of like War Thunder videos here and there. Okay, going back to this replay again. So one thing about playing second line support cruisers is that, one, you do want to stick with your fleet, which means stick with your heavy ships, stick with ships that, you're able to sort of hide amongst without other people shooting at you. And second of all, as a second line support cruiser, if you can get into a position where you can temporarily hold up, behind islands and get some shots in, do that. You don't always have to be moving. I mean, that's not really always a good idea because, if you keep moving and you get out of cover, you basically expose yourself. In this kind of situation, look at that Iowa. The Iowa's sitting perfectly still. Why not get some shots in, right? Of course, do keep your eye open on destroyers and things like that, because if you're stopped and there is a way to get torpedoes into your flank, some destroyers will definitely try it, and if you're not aware, you are going to get torpedoed. So that is not all that fun. Anyway, so going back to other stuff for a second again, because there's a lot of other stuff to talk about today, including British battleships again, because we found out some new info about those things, and boy, there's a lot to talk about there. I mentioned a while back I was playing Rainbow Six Siege, and I didn't really have videos because seriously, who'd want to watch me play Rainbow Six Siege a while back? I was god awful at the game, and I played for about, I think, maybe a week and a half, and then I called it quits. Actually, I just said, I can't do this. Like, I'm just getting every game. I was just getting my butt kicked. Like, there was no feeling of like I was getting any better. I was just constantly getting wrecked, game in, game out. And, you know, sometimes it didn't help that you were getting matched up with guys who are like, you know, gold or I think it was like diamond or something like that. It just, I don't know. Sometimes matchmaking casual gives you like people that you're just like, right. But I've gone back to it recently, like the last couple of days, and I don't know, something clicked in my head. And I'm having a lot more fun with it. I'm not getting wrecked as much. Still getting killed occasionally if I run into the occasional like pro league player or whatever, but doing better overall and enjoying that game much more. Not sure if I'm ever going to really do videos on it, just because, you know, Rainbow Six Siege doesn't really have a sort of a replay function, so who knows. Again, you can see, right, if you're in a good spot, don't be in a rush to move away from it, right? If you continue to drop shells on the enemy, you don't have to move. Of course, when you are too far away from your fleet, you probably want to start deciding that, you know, you might want to move up and get together with your team again. All right, so let's talk about British battleships for a minute. And we've had information come out about the tier 9 and 10 British battleships. And especially the tier 10, because the tier 10 right now is apparently just so outright stupid that just utter insanity. I mean, right now, from what I can see on the data mine stuff, it's got miniature heal, so it can heal like half its HP in like one heal. It's insanity. It's got Des Moines radar. Yeah, it's actually got Des Moines radar. It's got Des Moines range, Des Moines duration. It's got really good armor. I mean, I think its armor is only a touch behind Yamato, but otherwise really good armor. Its rudder shift apparently is incredibly fast. Its AA is really good. I think just a tiny bit worse than Montana, I think. At least when it comes to its mid-range AA. Its long-range AA, I think, is a little bit weaker, but I mean, its AA is really good. And then you've got, I think, really good guns as well. I mean, I've looked at the numbers so far. I mean, it looks like its penetration is going to be really good. And if it follows with maybe some of the other Royal Navy traits, I think its dispersion is going to be really good as well, even though the Sigma value is only like 1.8 or something like that. But again, Royal Navy battleships so far have had a trait where, you know, when you actually look at that dispersion circle, when you account for vertical and horizontal dispersion, it's a relatively small circle. So again, like I said, Sigma isn't everything. And it looks like the Royal Navy might just have that really small circle like all the way up, which means that we might be looking at a tier 10 battleship that has insanely good accuracy, maybe even better than what Yamato's got. That's kind of a scary thing as well, now that you think about it. So yeah, just all in all, looked at the tier 10 battleship and just was like, what are they thinking? Like, how did a bunch of developers sit down in the office and say, righto folks, let's come up with a new ship, and this is what we can come up with? Like, it almost makes me wonder, it's like, do they not play their game? And like, wouldn't you just by looking at it on paper be like, this is a really bad idea? Like, I just don't know. It seems so ridiculous that they sat down together and said, right, this is how we should do the tier 10. And actually speaking about that sort of the same thing, I mean, that's kind of my frustration as well with like the Enterprise as well. Like the way they designed Enterprise was like, yep, let's just go ahead and do this, and that's a starting point. And they think that that's an okay starting point, and yet with Kaga it was like, cool, let's just go that way and make that the starting point. And it was just so insanely broken. It was just like, I don't understand. Like, I don't understand how those guys sit down and come up with these ideas, because you'd figure that if they understood their game, they would just sit down at the table together and be like, right, we need to create a new ship. Let's give it a little bit of its own flavor so it's a little bit different. But let's not like outright break the game or outright make these ships so broken from the get-go and then figure out ways to balance it afterwards. I mean, let's just have it so that, you know, it's reasonably well balanced with small traits here and there. And that's pretty much how I expected it to go. But like with the tier 10 British battleships, I'm just looking at them like, what? Like, how did you guys sit down and think this was a good idea? Just like, how? Anyways, Anyways, that's so far what I think about the British battleships. Although tier 8, the King George V, I think that ship's really going to struggle. I mean, that ship is really going to struggle. Great armor, but those guns, yikes! At tier 8, facing up to tier 10s, I think you're gonna really struggle there. Going back to Summit's game again, well, this is the life of a second line support cruiser. You hang out with your fleet, and when you find targets that you can shoot at, you shoot at them. And in this case, look at those battleships that are going bow in. You just sling a lot of HE and you make them burn. See, like I told you, it's not like the world's most engaging gameplay, but it works. It works if you're trying to get good results out of it. Okay, that was a little bit too much in the open there. Still, damage wasn't all that bad. Only about 5k damage, I think, taken. Summit was at least angled enough to show that, sort of side shot where the shells were able to bounce off of that belt armor. Speaking of armor angling, because there's another thing that I kind of do want to talk about. When you're angling your ship, don't always go bow in, right? Don't always go bow in. What you kind of want to do sometimes is show a little bit more of that side. Now, you want to show enough of that side to where you're still inside the auto bounce zone. So let's say, think about, let's say 70 degrees plus. So you're giving the enemy basically about like a 20-25 degree angle, something like that. And what you want to do is you want to sort of bait their shots into your belt armor and have the shells hit your belt armor and essentially bounce off from there. Going bow in works, assuming that the enemy cannot overmatch your bow. But again, if you are running into ships that can threaten you, you might want to just present a little bit more of that side and try to get them to shoot at your belt, and so you can bounce your shots that way. Anyhow, so yeah, Summit continues to do what he does, which is stay a little bit at range, fires some HE, continues to score that fire damage. And he's currently sitting on a decent amount of damage already, 118,000. That's going to go up again here, over 120k, and still going. So, yeah, there's double fire again. So, yeah, that's going to be a bit more there off of that battleship. Enemy battleships are, I think they're trying to hold position here. But yeah, I think they're honestly a little bit too passive here. I would have hoped that maybe they'd be a tiny bit more aggressive. Especially had they looked at the enemy list, they would have not seen the enemy team with any destroyers left. So I think I would have just been a bit more aggressive, but they're a little bit too passive. And of course, Summit just punishes them by landing those HE hits and those fires, and of course continues to rack up all that damages. Anyways, alright, oh, another recent change that happened in Warships. Another change that I'm not all that fond of, the German HE buff. Oh, that one just... On cruisers, the Germans now, the penetration values for their HE is divided by 4 now instead of 6, based on the main caliber of the guns. Which means that the German 150mm guns on the Nuremberg, if I remember correctly, can now penetrate like 37mm of armor, which is just, just utter madness. Basically, the Nuremberg without IFHE is going to be able to pen through tier 10 battleship bows. Just, oh man. There are days where I look at the changes done for things like that, and I really, like, I seriously wonder if the developers of Wargaming sometimes even play their own game at all, because, like, how is this a good idea? Like, how is it a good idea to give one line of cruisers the ability to penetrate tons of armor without using IFHE? I think right now, if you're playing like a 203mm German cruiser without your IFHE skill, you can already penetrate, I think, over 50mm of armor. So, like, I think the only battleship at tier 10 that's immune to you is the Yamato. And even then, that's like the center superstructure, not superstructure, superstructure is vulnerable, but like the central deck area under the superstructure. Like, that's it. That's like, there's one ship in the game whose armor you just don't fully ignore. That's insanity. That's insanity. I just don't understand how the developers for World of Warships just sat down and said, like, yep, this is how we're going to change it. I mean, there's so many other things they could have done, and they do this? like, doesn't really make all that much sense to me. And yeah, it's just like the overall ways of them coming up with ideas for ships these days is just very strange. I think that's the best way to put it. From like, it's just very strange. Like, they came up with Kaga, and I said, look, Kaga is really bad idea. Like, really, really bad idea. Like, why would you do that to a ship that can see, you know, ships down to tier 5? Like, why? Do you really want players to just rage quit or something? Like, that's not a good plan. And they did like the smallest, tiniest nerf to her. And then they go ahead and they do Enterprise, and it's like, this is what you guys came up with after you did Kaga? Like, really? And then you have battleships, the British battleships, and it's like, seriously? Ah, man. And there are days where you look at the changes to this game and you're just like, I can't even. I just can't even. Anyway, so Summit has farmed up all battleships for damage and is now farming off this little rune here for some last little bits of damage, already securing himself Witherer and High Caliber. Rune is, well, not too happy right now, taking some pretty solid HE hits there for quite a bit of damage. Also got 2 fires burning, so his HP is just going to tick away. Unless he can actually damage control this, but it doesn't look like it's going to matter. I mean, whether or not this rune dies versus the speed at which the cap is going. Maybe Summit gets the kill, maybe caps out. I think he's going to get this one, though. Yeah, Rune's not got much HP left. 2,500. Oh, nope, never mind. Only about 900 left. 600. Burning away 300. I don't even think those shells he fired is actually going to hit there. Oh, and right there in the very last tick, right as the cap actually reaches 1,000 points, he secures the final kill. And there we go. This is the world record Indianapolis damage right now. 200,032. So just over 200k. 171 target hits, 19 fires set, 3 ships sunk, High Caliber Witherer, 6,161. Such a good number for someone who has like slight OCD. That is such a pretty number to look at. 605,000 credits, so that's a good. I just noticed something. If you actually, oh, never mind. If you actually look at like the target hits, the shot down, and the incapacitation, you actually see 17171. Okay, all right. I'll stop. I'll stop with my OCD. Okay, darn it. Anyways, all right. So let's take a look at his base experience as well. For tier 7, in a situation where you're bottom tier, 2,738 base experience. That's actually a really good experience score. Take a look at the damage here. 88,000 damage from HE, 111,000 damage from fires. Yeah, like I said, support cruisers, right? You're just setting fires and pissing battleships and stuff off. Main goal. And finally, after all the deductions, just under 500,000 credits earned at 489,038 credits. Anyways, folks, that wraps up this video. Talked about the Indianapolis, talked about a bunch of random other things. Well, I guess, that pretty much does it for me today, folks. Take care, have yourselves a good one, and I will talk to all of you again really, really soon.